H&R Block's shady tax practices, Trump and Biden's dueling border visits, and does the arrest of this ex-FBI informant put some cracks in the Hunter Biden corruption story? Or should I say, more crack? Then more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered, I'm Chris Chappell. If you're sick of inflation, you aren't the only one. Prices are on average 19% higher than before the pandemic. And the Associated Press reports that consumers are pushing back against price increases by shopping at discount stores, not purchasing brand-named items, and buying fewer snacks overall. That's not pushing back, that's just called being poor. Not buying name brand items isn't a radical, defiant act against capitalism, it's a survival tactic. It's like seeing people living in tents and reporting, look how they're pushing back against the rising cost of rent. It feels like the cost of everything is surging. In the case of fast food, almost literally. During an earnings call, Wendy's CEO said starting in 2025, Wendy's will experiment with digital menu boards that display dynamic pricing. So the cost of what you order could surge depending on the time of day you ordered it. After a ton of backlash, the company said it would not use surge pricing after all, and that everyone just misunderstood what their CEO clearly implied. I guess they got cold feet after seeing this idea's frosty reception. Speaking of acts of protest, 25-year-old U.S. Air Force member Aaron Bushnell has died after setting himself on fire outside the Israel embassy in Washington, D.C. As he burned, he shouted, "Free Palestine." That's not all he did. Bushnell live-streamed his self-immolation on Twitch. And hours beforehand, he posted a message on Facebook saying, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery, or the Jim Crow South, or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is, you're doing it right now." That's shocking. The 25-year-old was using Facebook. This is truly sad, mostly because this is somehow one of the least dramatic reactions I've seen online to the Israel-Hamas war. As for his claims about the U.S., keep in mind, Palestinian authorities aren't exactly helping create a free Palestine either. Hamas, the militant group that controls Gaza, is designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. And the people of Gaza have not always appreciated the way Hamas governed them, calling the organization corrupt and authoritarian. Meanwhile, the government in the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority, has also seen its fair share of corruption accusations. Totally unrelated, but the Palestinian Authority Prime Minister and government resigned this week. Now, the former Palestinian Authority Prime Minister explains on a Facebook post, the next stage and its challenges require new governmental and political arrangements that take into account the new reality in the Gaza Strip. Wow, another major announcement on Facebook. Look, correlation does not equal causation. That being said, Facebook is clearly a cesspool for the corrupt and mentally ill, and anyone still on that dumpster fire of a site should be seen as a threat to themselves and possibly others. But what's the real moral here? When every government in a conflict is seemingly corrupt, appealing to their emotions by setting yourself on fire isn't going to change their minds. What you really need is money. You don't need kerosene, you need a Kickstarter to bribe shady leaders to do what you want. That's the most effective form of protest there is. Besides living in a tent, of course. Take that, capitalism. But speaking of cash, the Federal Trade Commission is accusing H&R Block of deleting tax data from customers who chose not to upgrade to more expensive plans. This forces them to spend more money or risk having to start their tax filings all over again. Director of the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection, Samuel Levine, says H&R Block designed its online products to present an obstacle course of tedious challenges to consumers, pressuring them into overpaying for its products. Today's action demonstrates that companies using coercive techniques that harm consumers can expect to hear from the FTC. Oh, so the FTC is coming after organizations that make doing taxes more tedious, expensive, and stressful. Well, I for one am glad someone is finally going after the IRS. You want to make taxes easier? That's your final boss. And after the break, Ronna McDaniel resigns as RNC chair. Welcome back. Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel announced she would step down on March 8th, 3 days after Super Tuesday. North Carolina GOP Chair Michael Whatley announced his candidacy to take over as head of the RNC, and he has the support of Donald Trump behind him. Donald Trump is also endorsing his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who announced her candidacy for co-chair. McDaniel was criticized after Trump's presidential loss in 2020 and Republicans' disappointing showing in the 2020 midterm elections. McDaniel says the RNC has historically undergone changes once we have a nominee, and it has always been my intention to honor that tradition. I remain committed to winning back the White House and electing Republicans up and down the ballot in November. And there's going to be another power vacuum in November, when Mitch McConnell steps down as the Senate Republican leader to spend more time with his family in the Galapagos. Speaking of Trump, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump both visited the southern border on the same day. This is only Biden's second visit to the border during his presidency. His first trip was last January, when the crisis was only sort of overwhelming out of control to unprecedented levels. Now it's gotten so bad that the Border Patrol Union told Biden ahead of his trip to keep their names out of his mouth. It's become a bigger, fiery disaster than Texas right now, which is experiencing the biggest wildfire in the state's history. But visiting the border is a brilliant move by both politicians, mainly because the Trump-Biden rematch is so awful that by putting it front and center at the border, it might actually make migrants think twice before wanting to enter the U.S. Throw up a giant Madam Web billboard and border crisis solved. Speaking of running the free world, Biden missed the February 5th deadline to present Congress his plans for spending and national security. As a result, Republicans in Congress want to block him and future presidents who miss deadlines from giving State of the Union speeches. They propose this in a plan called the Submit It Act, which stands for Send Us Budget Materials and International Tactics. Again, here's society if Congress spent a quarter as much time coming up with solutions to problems as they did acronyms for useless bills. Should it somehow pass, the Submit It Act wouldn't affect Biden's planned March 7th State of the Union speech, but would affect it for 2025. Republican Congressman Buddy Carter says this is irresponsible. Until Congress receives the president's national security strategy and budget, he has no business delivering a State of the Union address. Worth noting is that the previous 4 presidents were also late in submitting their budget. So on the bright side, this isn't a case of Biden being forgetful, it's a case of every president being forgetful. That actually doesn't make me feel better. Speaking of running late to fund things, the government was on the brink of another partial shutdown yet again. But they managed to strike a last-minute deal that didn't solve the underlying problem. It just kicked the can down the road yet again. I feel like I cover this more often than I floss, and I have excellent oral hygiene. We need a president that can solve this issue once and for all, and not just delay it again and again. Someone who can handle the weight and responsibility of the position. And if there's any candidate that knows about handling weight, it's America Uncovered's officially endorsed presidential candidate, Chris Christie. Forget the lesser of two evils. Chris Christie has never been described as lesser than anything. And after the break, California's governor will air interesting commercials in Tennessee. Welcome back. All this news has been pretty bleak. Let's talk about something less depressing. Abortion. California Governor Gavin Newsom is creating an advertising campaign that will air in states considering laws that would discourage helping minors travel to get an abortion.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young women who travel to receive the reproductive care they need.
The ad will first air in Tennessee, where there's currently a proposal to charge adults with a felony if they help pregnant minors get an abortion out of state without their parents' permission. It will then air in other states trying to pass similar legislation.
I understand not agreeing with moves other states are making and speaking out about it, but couldn't you just make a YouTube video or Instagram reel denouncing it instead of spending who knows how much money on professionally shot ads when you could use that money instead to try and fix some of your own state's problems? Now, who am I kidding? I'm sure Californians don't mind their tax money being spent this way. After all, they love protesting. Take that, capitalism. Sweden will join NATO after Hungary approved its accession to the organization. This move was set in motion by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. So by trying to prevent NATO from becoming more powerful, Russia succeeded in making NATO more powerful. Speaking of Russia, a judge has ruled that Alexander Smirnov, an ex-FBI informant, will remain jailed while he awaits trial for allegedly lying to authorities and falsely telling them in 2020 that Ukrainian energy company Burisma paid Joe and Hunter Biden $5 million each in 2015. He was previously released but was rearrested after this new judge's decision. Smirnov's claim was a large part of the Republicans' impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. Smirnov has pled not guilty to these charges and claims he got this information about the Bidens from Russian intelligence. Oh no, I bet you can see where this is going. Leading up to the 2020 presidential election, the Hunter Biden laptop story was repeatedly suppressed. 51 former U.S. intelligence officials said in a letter that the story seemed like Russian disinformation. Later, the New York Times and other media outlets admitted the laptop was indeed authentic. However, with Smirnov's arrest, these former officials say they now feel vindicated in their warnings. But not everyone thinks they are. A spokesperson for the GOP-led House Judiciary Committee says the Hunter Biden laptop was always real and always authenticated. They knew or should have known that, and they still ran with their verifiably bogus letter. The people who signed the letter should feel zero vindication. Essentially, they warned that the laptop itself was Russian disinformation. It was shown to be real. But there appears to be Russian disinformation in another pretty much completely unrelated part of the story. So now they're saying they feel vindicated overall. That's kind of like saying, since he beat a parking ticket in court, clearly Ted Bundy must have done nothing else wrong. There's a lot more to Hunter's shady business dealings than just an alleged bribe that is now alleged to be false. There are allegations of quid pro quo arrangements in setting up meetings with his father, who was vice president at the time, and there are still questions about how much Joe Biden allegedly did or didn't know about any of this. Allegedly. In a closed-door deposition, Hunter Biden repeatedly told Republicans leading the investigation against him that he never involved his father in his business. This is despite evidence showing to the contrary Joe Biden interacting with Hunter's business associates. Now maybe Hunter and Joe Biden did nothing wrong. Or maybe they actually committed several illegal acts and the Russians tainted any future investigations by trying to frame an already guilty party. Like when evidence may have been planted in the O.J. Simpson case. Did I say guilty? My bad. I'm sure O.J. will find the real killers. It'll just take another 30 years. And in my ongoing attempt to talk about all the things YouTube considers too controversial by hiding it in gaming content, I'm talking about the new Final Fantasy VII remake that just came out and what it has to do with Andrew Tate and the Red Pill movement. Are you Team Tifa or Team Aerith? Check it out and let me know what you think. An American Covered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support us on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode, and you can set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.